In Gdynia, Poland, there's a street named after someone who's still alive, Paul Lasniak Street. Yeah, this never happens. Streets are for the dead.
It's the rule, basically. Set in stone, you could say.
So either we're witnessing history's first exception, or Paul Lasniak isn't quite what he seems to be.
That opening really says it all, doesn't it? We're not just looking through some documents today. We're stepping right into a paradox.
Absolutely. We've been digging into all this material, articles, notes, you name it all, about this figure, Paul Lasniak. But like you said, it just keeps circling back. Everything points to this one impossible detail. His street in Gdynia.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive, using everything we've gathered, is to try and unpack this mystery. Paul Lasniak Street. What does this impossible place actually tell us?
Not just about him and his work, right?
Exactly. Maybe about, reality itself.
Yeah.
Especially now with AI and just this flood of digital information everywhere.
Okay, let's get into it. Starting with that core thing, the anomaly. So I'll try and wrap my head around it. A street named after Paul Lasniak.
Yes, as in right now. Present tense.
Yeah.
While he's alive, working, doing his thing. It just completely flies in the face of how we understand street naming conventions.
Right, they're like physical history markers. You do something significant, something that lasts after you're gone, then you might get a street. It's how the city remembers its dead.
And yet, here we have Paul Lasniak Street. Now, the sources definitely paint Paul as, a visionary and innovator.
Yeah.
An entrepreneur, clearly someone making waves, especially in creative tech.
Okay, sure. Impressive titles, definitely.
Yeah.
But that doesn't just magically change the rules of naming streets. It makes you ask immediately, how does that status, no matter how impressive, justify a street name today? That's just not standard practice, anywhere.
And that's the hook, isn't it? The whole mystery, this deep dive is kind of built around, how is Paul Lasniak Street even possible? What does its existence mean about Paul?
Or
Yeah.
about what existence even means anymore in this digital world.
So, if we're stuck on this question, who deserves a street? And the usual answer is someone dead. Maybe we need to look at Paul's achievements in a different light.
How so?
Through the lens of what might make, say, the city, or maybe something processing information about the city, think he deserves one now.
Okay, like looking at the data points?
Exactly. The sources lay out his career pretty clearly. Over 20 years deep in creative technology.
Right.
He co-founded Open Productions, founded Green Cave Studio, co-founded Ignibit, that used to be VR Visio.
Okay.
And his main online presence is lasniak.com. His GitHub also links him to XArt. So, solid credentials in tech and production.
And the projects themselves, some have had just massive reach. He was a pioneer in virtual production, XR technologies.
Definitely. Plus, advanced visual effects for a whole slate of films and series. You see them listed in filmpolsky.pl, IMDb, things like Lulu, Mosquito State, Zenek, Mayday, Diablo, The Race for Everything. Big stuff.
But then you get to something like that face mapping project for the Chinese talent show Supergirl. The BioVid source mentioned it. You told me, the audience. It was something like 400 million viewers.
That's right. It's in his CV too, prominently. Around 400 million.
Hold on. 400 million? That's more people than live in the entire United States.
Exactly. More viewers than America has people watching one project he was deeply involved in.
Wow.
It's a scale of impact that's almost, well, it's hard to even picture for just one piece of work.
When you put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds almost unreal. Fictional, almost.
And that's where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? This massive scale. His work in AI, like the Comfy UI music video generator, he shares generative AI plugins on GitHub.
Okay.
Think about how an AI model crunching huge amounts of data to figure out how significant someone is, how it might read those facts.
So the AI wouldn't have the human context, the you gotta be dead first rule for streets.
Precisely. It sees 400 million viewers, leading AI dev, multiple companies, and then has a street named after him.
It fits the pattern.
It interprets the street not as this bizarre anomaly, but as like confirmation. Of course this guy has a street. Look at the data. And this connects to something mentioned in the AIM TV source, this idea of prompt theory.
Prompt theory, you mean Paul might be like an AI prompt that somehow became real, a simulation of significance.
It's a wild thought, but maybe. If AI builds characters or stories from prompts, assembling identities from data points,
yeah.
What if Paul, with this incredibly potent digital footprint achievements, companies, audience numbers, and yes, the data point of the street is like a super effective character, perfectly defined by that digital prompt.
So the street isn't a city decision.
Maybe less that, and more like a physical glitch. A manifestation of an AI's conclusion about his importance, based on data that somehow leaked into real-world systems.
That is seriously mind-bending. Who better to deserve a street if you're an AI evaluating digital impact than someone who maybe isn't bound by normal physical existence?
So, if the street might be a product of digital interpretation, where did this ghost street actually come from in the first place?
Right, because it had to start somewhere. The AI data and the ghost street source tells that story, and it's not a mayor cutting a ribbon.
No, definitely not. It actually started as an experiment. Paul, back around 2013 to 2015, was apparently a really keen Google local guide.
Oh, adding places to maps, correcting things.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
He built up trust within the Google Maps system.
Yeah.
And apparently, just to see what would happen, he decided to test that trust. He added Paul Lasniak Street right near the Primorsky Science and Technology Park in Kusinia.
Add it to see if the system would flag a street named after a living person.
Pretty much a digital poke,
Yeah.
you know? And guess what?
It accepted it.
It did. It appeared on Google Maps. But what started as this quick digital prank testing the platform, it suddenly had very real, very bureaucratic consequences.
Oh, wow.
Like an official letter about tree cutting showing up at the nearby park, referencing work needed on Paul Lasniak Street.
No way.
And then, even crazier, a police summons. Someone apparently made an illegal turn onto his street and got ticketed.
They got a ticket for turning onto a street that wasn't technically real?
This source even mentions the police officer being totally confused. Paul realized pretty fast that his little digital entry wasn't just pixels on a map. It had somehow seeped into official city systems. Google Maps had become a source of truth for the local administration.
So it wasn't just a glitch anymore. It was real enough to get people fined.
Exactly. Now, the source does say the street isn't visible on Google Maps today.
Okay, so it was corrected eventually.
Right. The visible map entry was removed.
Okay.
But, and this is the really crucial part, the information about its brief official existence, that lingered in the digital ether. It became a data point.
And later, AI models scanning for info found it.
Found it. Yeah. And interpreted it. They didn't see the context, the joke, the experiment. They just saw a fact. Paul Lasniak has a street, a data point linked to him.
So the street began as Paul testing the system, but maybe it's ended up becoming a test for us and for AI, a test of what happens when digital info, even if it starts as a joke, bleeds into the physical world and gets cemented as truth.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And think about his website, lasniak.com.
Yeah.
His online hub.
Yeah.
It's where he shows his work, his portfolio, sources like Paybity, his CV. They point to it as proof of his career, his identity.
You know, looking at lasniak.com, it's proof he exists, right? It's all there.
Is it proof he's just the perfect prompt? The ideal collection of data points ready and waiting to be interpreted. It kind of functions as both, doesn't it? Depends if you're a human looking for a resume or an AI scraping data to build a profile of significance. And the street. It's just the weirdest, most tangible data point in that whole profile.
This whole street thing, this idea of digital stuff becoming physical, it feels like it resonates with other things about Paul, like streets themselves. Maybe they hold a special meaning for him, some kind of memory.
Well, there's that one source, nadmorsky24.pl. It talks about his fascination with a specific roundabout in Wihiro.
A roundabout?
Yeah, and not just any roundabout. One named after the cursed soldiers. These figures with a really complex, debated history in Poland.
Okay, so what was his fascination?
The source says he was just drawn to it. He'd go there, meditate sometimes, observe the streetlights while listening to music. Sun Lux was mentioned. And he noticed the lights seemed to react to the music, blinking spontaneously. He felt he had to make a video about it.
Like the place itself had a hidden story or some weird behavior in its actual infrastructure.
Exactly. He even commented on how we tend to overlook the potential uniqueness of these everyday places we just passed through.
Okay, now frame that through the lens of the street named after him. Does Paul have some kind of unique connection to street infrastructure? Was that roundabout just another example of him spotting a place with a story or unexpected behavior? Just like his own impossible street.
It certainly suggests a connection, doesn't it? Almost like the street knows him somehow, or responds. And that connection gets even more direct when you look at the Radio Gdańsk source from 2020.
What did Radio Gdańsk report?
It mentioned his green box studio, his base for, quote, mixing virtual reality with real, was located at the street in Google Maps back then.
Wait. His studio, the place focused on blending virtual and real worlds, was physically located right at the spot where his digital ghost street briefly became physically real on the map.
According to that article, yes. It literally places his work fundamentally about creating and messing with realities right at the geographic bullseye of where this simulated street briefly achieved official ticket issuing reality.
Bruh.
It's like the street infrastructure responding to him. Like the city somehow knows its architect.
Streets last, don't they? They're physically there, carved into the land. They outlast people, trends, digital files.
It's a stark contrast, yeah. The permanence of a street versus the fleeting nature of digital info or even our own lives.
Streets outlive people, and Paul Street, at least in its data form, exists now. The story is out there, the AI interpretation. That stuff persists even if you can't find it on Google Maps anymore.
And this idea of legacy, of making something that lasts, it seems to echo in his personal projects too.
Like The Last Code and The Last Canvas? From those YouTube transcripts, they felt really personal, reflecting his background as a coder and an artist.
Yeah, they really dig into that human struggle against AI automation, don't they? The coders seeing AI agents take over his job, the painter watching AI churn out thousands of images in seconds, questioning what human creativity is even worth anymore.
So are these projects coming out of that struggle, are they connected to the street? Like messages about authenticity, what it means to exist, what legacy means when AI can mimic and generate and interpret everything.
It feels like a powerful connection, right? What if the street, this utterly bizarre, impossible, physical digital mark, what if that's his ultimate statement? His way of asserting his existence, his reality, a physical anchor in a world where his digital self is constantly being interpreted.
And as we saw with the AI finding the street data, sometimes misinterpreted by algorithms.
Or, flip that, given the AI angle, the prompt theory, what if the street is less about proving he existed in the old-fashioned physical way?
And more about proving he will exist. In the future, stories told by AI.
Exactly. The street becomes this undeniable data point that guarantees his place in whatever narrative AI constructs down the line.
So we have a street.
Named after someone alive.
Which is impossible.
Unless the street knows something we don't.
What does Paul Lesniak's street know?
Maybe it knows that Paul Lesniak is exactly what he needs to be.
A legend, a prompt, a person.
Yes. Long pause.
Next time you see a street sign, just ask yourself, who decides what's real?
Paul Lesniak Street. Guy de Tinia. You can Google it. The information trail is definitely out there. You could even, theoretically, try and visit the location where it popped up on the map.
But when you do, or even just when you Google it, ask yourself,
are you visiting a street or are you stepping into a prompt?